home in the tenement flats of Pollock Shields. 3 or 4 men from the same village sharing rooms to cut down on costs to save money, which for some was almost 30 times what they could earn back home. Also, the Mangla Dam was being built in the Mirpur district, and to allow this to happen, hundreds of villages had to be emptied, entire families evicted and displaced. There was a reported 100,000 families moving to Britain. For those moving to Glasgow, the West End was too expensive, and even today there are fewer Asians living in the West compared to the South. When we used to live in Pollock Shields at school and out in the shared back gardens, there were lots of other brown kids, and a few other mixed race children too. In some places there were more brown than white kids. We belonged and never thought of ourselves as being different. Life outside the family home was carefree, and out in the back garden we would play alongside the other children, whatever their colour. In our new family home, we were only ever allowed in the gardens to play and never out in the streets. And at our new school, we stood out. We looked different. We spoke with a slight accent, and the girls dressed differently. Having to wear trousers underneath our pinafores, no way do you show your legs. We smelled differently too. Smelling of spices, thanks to the daily curries cooked at home, and mustard oil, which was massaged into all the children's hair. The hair massaging was always done on a Saturday afternoon and left in overnight, and then on the Sunday it would be washed out when we were bathed for school the next day. The oil softened the hair, made it shiny and sleek, and many Pakistani families carried out this ritual. It just didn't smell very nice. We were easy targets. Out of the 7 of us that were in primary school, I was the one who stood up to the bullies. I loved school. It was my escape from the big house. At my old school, there was kindness, praise, and most importantly, fun. I wanted the time I spent at school to be happy. There was enough fighting, name-calling, and insulting to be dealing with at home. I had no choice but to fight to keep school a happy place. At home, I was powerless to change the way in which we were treated. Who would listen to me? And who could I hit back in defence? At school, it was different at school. I had the power and the courage to change the way we were being treated. I could stand up to the bullies. They called us smelly packies, spat on us, laughed and ridiculed, tripped us up, and even threw stones on one occasion. The teachers didn't know how to deal with it. They never had to deal with the racist behaviour from their pupils. Amira had told Mummy when we got home from school that day, and the next day Mummy marched up to the school screaming at the head teacher that she was sick and tired of her children being picked on, and if the school didn't punish those responsible, then she would be taking further action. Mummy screaming and shouting didn't resolve the problem. The insults continued day after day until one day Michael, who was in my class, shouted one too many times. "You're a wee smelly packy." I ran up to him and slapped him hard across the head, just like I'd seen done at home 1,000 times to me, to Mummy and the other children. Looking down at his scared face, taller than him and all the other boys in my class, I screamed, "I am not wee and I am not smelly, and if you call me a packy again, I will hit you again." All my anger and frustrations were being taken out on Michael. Not the biggest bully in the class, that was Gavin, who had no problem pulling my pigtail hard or slapping me on the arm or back, even punching me in the head. Poor Michael, who had never hit me, wasn't to know that a bath had slapped me hard across the face the night before. I had refused to help wash the dishes after dinner, choosing to go to my room to read my latest Enid Blyton book. I had borrowed it from the library after school and decided the magic faraway tree was a better choice than washing the dishes. And because no fuss was made, I stayed in my room. Fatima told Abbas when he came home, and I was called down from my room and slapped for my disobedience. It was Michael's bad luck that he chose to call me names that day. I slapped him across his head and punched him. showing him a way when he tried to hit back. When word spread what I had done, I was challenged to fight boys on a daily basis. Most playtimes I can be found surrounded by a ring of boys and girls, all cheering, fight, fight, fight. Jacket off and sleeves rolled up, fists in the air, ready to strike whatever boy faints me. I wasn't scared or angry. I just wanted the bullying to stop and for them to accept us. The girls were far more friendlier, or maybe they were just too scared to fight me. I was in primary 4 and would happily fight against boys in primary 7. Anything to stop the bullying and make school fun, like it was in our old school. Once I remember being caught fighting with Gavin. We would fight many times before we called it a truce. Surrounded by a group of boys and girls, we were pulling and shouting at one another, with slaps and punches being thrown around. Mr. Costello broke it up, and we were sent to the head teacher. We were both given lines to write. I must not fight 100 times. It was to be written as though that would really change our behaviour. The teachers didn't inform the big house, worried about Mummy's reaction, I think, after her previous visit to the school. If the big house had found I was fighting, I would have been in big trouble. It would not be seen as acceptable for me to stick up for myself. One of the many effed up views of the big house. Effed up because it seemed Abbas, Fatima and Mummy were allowed to hit us for whatever trivial reason they chose, but I wasn't allowed to hit someone for picking on us. The fight ended when the boys gave up, realising I would never stop fighting them. Slowly we were accepted by most of the children at school. Out of school was a different story, and the racism from neighbours would continue for many years before the area began to accept that Abbas and the family were not going to be forced out, no matter how many times they smashed our windows, scrawled in paint BNP and Packies Go Home on our garden walls, or spat at Mummy and called her a Packy lover. When out at the local shops, we were staying put. We would never be accepted though, tolerated maybe. No matter what happened on the outside, inside the house, the racism would never end.
Thank you very much. I'm hoping for everybody here tonight they got a flavour for what the Gori's Daughter is all about in terms of a Glasgow story. So, excuse me, hope you all enjoyed it. The next bit of the evening is a question and answer session just for some of the people in the panel in terms of maybe getting a wee bit more information about where the book comes from and why we chose to publish it. So I have a couple of questions for the panel just to hopefully get it going, but there will be an opportunity for everybody to ask questions from the floor, okay? My first question is to Sandy in terms of his role in Ringwood as to why you thought it was important to publish The Gori's Daughter.
Okay. Thanks. There's really two reasons why I've been asked to speak here. First is that I was the first person in Ringwood to read The Gori's Daughter, and the second one, I was the last person to tidy it up before we sent it to the printer. And in response to that question, I'd like to share with you some of my thoughts about both those occasions, because they're slightly different thoughts. There are times in your life when something happens that helps define things for you, who you are, what it is you want to do, what it is you're trying to achieve. And reading The Gori's Daughter for the first time was one of these defining moments for me, because it was a very, very powerful feeling it evoked in me. The Gori's Daughter was publishing. It was a superb book, but if I can highlight two or three of the feelings I had about it at the time. The first and most important one is that it was authentic, and given the slightly difficult subject matter, that's very important. And what you can see is the author knows what she's talking about, and that's a consolation to readers when that's true. It's a very brave book, because there's as you'll see when you read it, there's a lot of pain in it, there's a lot of hurt in it, but it's confronted directly, head on, unflinchingly and without sentimentality, which makes it very brave. It's also a very controversial book, as you'll see when you read it, and frankly, it's going to annoy a lot of people. There's going to be a lot of white people upset by the challenging of their cosy assumptions about how Scotland gets on very well with its Asian community. There's a lot of Asians going to be upset by the portrayal of what they really think about the white community. And there's a lot in both the white and the Asian community who are going to be upset by what it says about their attitudes to mixed race children. So there's a lot of people going to be upset by this book. But that's what good literature's about, upsetting people, making them think. The more literate of you will have noticed that I started with an A and then moved on to a B and then a C. But the good news is I'm not going to go through the alphabet A to Z. But there are 4 key words from the second half of the alphabet that I would want to share with you. This is a very powerful book. The pace carries you along with it and forces you to do things you might not want to do and think about things you might not want to think about. But it has a powerful effect on you. But books can be the first 4 things I mentioned without necessarily being quality. But this book is actually quality literature, and Ringwood has already nominated it for a literary prize. It's sufficiently good quality for that. The next word I would use, unforgettable, actually springs from my own experience this week. I started reading the book, which I've had around for quite a while, and it was only when I got to page 100 that I realised I'd actually read it before, years ago. Now that probably says more about me than it does about the book, but I guarantee you, nobody will ever forget that they've read The Gori's Daughter. They will never be in any doubt that they've read it. And the final word I would give you is unique. It's not written in a Scottish voice, it's not written in an Asian voice, it's not written in any voice that's known before. It's written in Shazia Hobbs' voice. And as we in Ringwood are prone to say, there's only one Shazia Hobbs. But with all those positive feelings on reading the book and the excitement of reading the book, there was also a but. And there's always a but in life. And quite frankly, I knew that 99% of publishers would send out one of these TBNT letters to Shazia. Thanks, but no thanks. And by the way, don't give up the day job, because they would have regarded it as unpublishable. Now, we didn't want to do that, but there were still 2 problems with it that had to be addressed. One was, in its first draft, it didn't show the whole picture. You got the sense of a magnificent picture, but all you were getting were as if somebody had cut wee bits out as jigsaw pieces and sent them to you. There needed to be a whole picture. But more importantly too, there was a confusion about what its central purpose was. It didn't seem sure whether it was describing events or illuminating the meaning behind those events. And I've always been a very firm believer that fiction is the most powerful way of telling the truth. That if you want to illuminate truths, fiction is a much better way of doing it than factual reports. So really that book had to be a novel, and a novel is the way it's going to tell the important truths that lie behind it, but it will do that. So there were those reservations, but it was such an important book, we knew we had to publish it. Now I want you to flash forward several months from that to the point I was at 2 or 3 weeks ago when they'd done the final tidy up in the book. And if any of you know about publishing, you won't believe it was as late as that, but that's another story. However, the book went to the publisher and it's come back, the book that we are launching tonight and the book that you'll be able to buy tonight. And my major feeling the day I sent it to the publisher was complete pride. That is exactly the kind of book we formed Ringwood to publish. Everybody connected with Ringwood is extremely proud of this book. It's a very important book and hopefully it will get the wide readership it deserves because it's now in its final form, it does present the whole picture. Now in its final fictional form, it does tell the truth about the important things behind the story, and it's all the other things I say, the authentic, brave and controversial quality, powerful, unforgettable and unique. It's a magnificent book. We are so proud to have published it, and we hope you will all buy it and get all your friends to buy it too. Thank you.